No, Tom Allen is not on the hot seat, nor should he be.
You are Locked On Nittany Lions, your daily podcast on the Penn State Nittany Lions. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You want to talk about an overreaction to the first two games of Penn State football? Canning Tom Allen. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. This is Locked On Nittany Lions. I'm your host, Zach Seyko, and thanks so much for making us your first listen and watch every single day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube. And today's show is brought to you by 5-Hour Energy. Go to 5hourenergy.com and use promo code LOCKEDONCFB to receive 20% off your order. This offer is only valid until September 30th on one order and cannot be used with other promotions. The code is also not good on subscription orders. Go to 5hourenergy.com today. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments section. Of course, I'd really appreciate a like on this episode, but more importantly, I want you to be a part of the discussion. Are you selling out already on Tom Allen as Penn State's defensive coordinator, or do you think that these things take some time? Because I feel like the standard that's being applied to Andy Kotelnicki in the offense absolutely should carry over to Tom Allen in the defense because it is a new system. So that's where we'll start. Of course, I think Tom Allen's the right guy to be the defensive coordinator. For anyone that thinks that Tom Allen should be fired or replaced, you got to pump the brakes. You have to pump the brakes here. It was a lackluster performance against Bowling Green, of all teams. I understand that, and I reacted to it accordingly, right? This is a MAC conference opponent. They shouldn't have had that kind of day. But there is an explanation for all of this, and there's light at the end of the tunnel when talking about this too. If Bowling Green had come out in the second half and put on a similar kind of performance offensively, then you can say, okay, Tom Allen's got to do something to right ship. But that's just it. He did in that game. You compare the first half to the second half stats. Let's actually look at it. Bowling Green, 24 points in the first half, 3 points, a field goal that came late in the fourth quarter. In the second half, total yards, 286 first half, second half, 89. Rushing yards per carry, 6.3 yards in the first half. Second half, 2.5 yards per carry. Passing yards, 192 to 62. I mean, the numbers are staggering. Penn State's defense made the necessary adjustments. I also think time of possession is important here too. Nearly 19 minutes in the first half, 13 minutes in the second half. So they were able to remove 6 minutes in difference there. Tom Allen made the absolute necessary adjustments to win the game and to help Penn State win the game. It's all encompassing, right? The offense, I think, certainly bailed out the defense when it didn't have its best performance. But to be able to react and adapt that way, to go into the second half and make the necessary adjustments to where Bowling Green could not do anything that it did in the first half is very telling, all while doing it without one of your best players, a future NFL, possibly a first-round pick in KJ Winston, who exited the game in the first quarter, was not available in the second half, and Penn State did that without KJ Winston. Bowling Green is also a really good team. I want to give them credit, and I feel obligated to because I didn't give them a better assessment. Coaching is good, veteran experience, 30-plus seniors. Connor Bazelak's a former SEC Freshman of the Year. Terrion Stewart's a good running back, and Harold Fannin Jr. I think can be a pro. He might be playing quite frequently on Sundays when all's said and done. I think this team can absolutely win the MAC conference. They have future NFL talent, not only on offense, on defense as well. Team's well coached. They put together an excellent game plan, but there's also a consequence of this too. So something else that needs to be pointed out about this game is the fact that Bowling Green went immediately to film study, looked at the Penn State-West Virginia game, because we're putting a lot of stock into Penn State's defensive performance against Bowling Green, but not what they did against West Virginia. Okay, so that's that same Tom Allen defense that held West Virginia to 12 points in Morgantown. I understand being concerned about Bowling Green. Bowling Green watched that West Virginia tape to a T, found all of things, because at some point you can exploit every single defense. Penn State's looking long-term here. So you don't need to reinvent everything, but what I want to try to concise this. Bowling Green watched the West Virginia game, looked at what Penn State did well and then studied it and put a game plan together and then executed it properly in the entirety of the first half. Then in the second half, Penn State made the adjustments because they're like, hey, we can't get away with this. The same things that worked against West Virginia are not working against Bowling Green. But why would Penn State put together a similar game plan defensively back-to-back weeks? They make some tweaks, they make some adjustments, but clearly Bowling Green was ready for those smaller adaptations. Because you play Ohio State and USC and Wisconsin and Washington, you play a Big Ten conference schedule down the road. My point is, you can't just show every one of your defensive secrets in week 2 against Bowling Green. Bowling Green, I think, more or less understands that, so they know that, hey, we can bank on the fact that Penn State is going to give us a similar game plan defensively, and we have the answers to the test. And Penn State, again, second half adjustments, Bowling Green had no answers offensively. So Tom Allen is absolutely the right guy. You need to give more credit to Bowling Green, and you also need to understand that Penn State is playing the long game of a 12-game regular season schedule, and you can't just put together the entire blueprint defensively. You have to be strategic with what you show on film throughout the season so that Ohio State, USC don't have all the leverage going into that game. It's a long season. We're allowing Andy Kotelnicki and the offense to have time to gel together, and I think they are ahead of the timeline that they've been given, but Allen and the defense should absolutely get the same treatment here. 12 points against West Virginia. Sometimes you just don't have your best day, and that's why you play complementary football. When the offense doesn't have a good day, defense is there to bail you out. This time, it was the complete opposite to 2023, where the defense bailed out the offense, the roles were reversed, the offense helped out the defense. At the end of the day, Bowling Green's offense had a good half of football, but they did not dominate, and there's nothing to completely scrap or reinvent. And Penn State made the necessary adjustments clearly, so you don't have to scrap and reinvent everything because what they did worked. Can't say the same thing for Notre Dame now, can we? Defense overall, so moving away from Tom Allen to the actual group, because there is more talent on this group than compared to 2023. This is still an elite group. Talented players across the board. Abdul Carter is drawing tons of attention by opposing offenses, and that is opening up opportunities for other players to make plays. KJ Winston, hopefully he doesn't have to miss too much time. We presume it is an injury based on the way that James Franklin addressed it. Obviously not ideal. So hopefully he does not miss too much time, if any. You have the bye week in Kent State. But those are the stars of the defense, Abdul Carter and KJ Winston at 100%. But the players that have really stepped up here, that have shown the most overall improvement, in my opinion, Zane Durant, currently the best defender by Pro Football Focus in the analytics across the board. That's with Winston. That's with Carter. Durant is number 1 on Penn State's defense. Zach Wheatley has shown a lot of progression. Jalen Reed is one of the top 5 players on this defense according to the analytics, and honestly might even be the best player overall in terms of the eye test. I think Jalen Reed has stood out the most above anybody else. You know who would be second? Tony Rojas. Great in pass coverage. He is defending well against the pass. I thought we were going to need to see some time for him to turn into that superstar. Doing it in week 1 and week 2. He is way ahead of schedule. And then for Penn State to go into the transfer portal, get a caliber of player like A.J. Harris. Harris has been the cornerback number 1, that shutdown corner that Penn State has needed to return since Joey Porter Jr. I know that wasn't that long ago, but Penn State likes to have that asset in its defense. Granted, he has not faced that true all-around wide receiver because Kalen King had a similar upbringing through the schedule, and then Marvin Harrison Jr. in Ohio State, and you don't really want to talk about that one. So we'll see how A.J. Harris, when he faces comparable competition, how he does. But right now, he has performed and checked all the boxes to this point. Other names that have stepped up in the defensive backfield alongside Harris, Elliott Washington is starting to live up to that pedigree as a high-profile recruit. Devon J. Thomas along the defensive line in the interior, the co-starter with Zane Durant at defensive tackle. Smith Vilbert, James Franklin said it. Hey, you're going to be talking a lot about Smith Vilbert, as we should, because the tape and the analytics back it up that Smith Vilbert is having a really good season. These guys are all playing above most people's preseason expectations. Now, however, deny Dennis Sutton, Abdul Carter, even though he is receiving a lot of attention, hasn't had the best season to start. Dom DeLuca, Kobe King have underperformed to an extent a little bit at linebacker. So overall, the defense is still a top 10 group at its base. I think that's the floor. These players are more talented collectively than they were a season ago. And you can already see that playmaking ability is not just condensed to a Chop Robinson or a Curtis Jacobs from a year ago. It is spread out all over the defense. Abdul Carter can make a play. KJ Winston can make a play. Zane Durant now can make a play. Zach Wheatley, Jalen Reed. You get my point? There's so much more star caliber playmaking players on this Penn State defense, and allow Tom Allen's system to actually settle in place. Manny Diaz and that defense allowed 31 points to Purdue. I get it. That's a Big Ten team. That was a road game, but it wasn't perfect right out of the gate for Diaz. It's not going to be perfect right out of the gate for Tom Allen, but he is the guy, and you will see the results. The results will happen in due time, especially when the schedule breaks and it gets into that difficult part and Penn State's prepared and ready to go for those tougher opponents. Now, the pass rush and the defensive line, Zane Durant's been really good, but the pass rush, 0 sacks against Bowling Green. Is the pass rush unit bad? We'll talk about that on the other side of this break. And today's episode is brought to you by Ultimate College Football HC. Hey, Locked On Nittany Lion fans, I'm excited to share a game with you that I know all of you will love, and that's Ultimate College Football HC. You step right into the role of a head coach and you can lead your team to glory. Imagine coaching the Nittany Lions, from recruiting players to managing training camps, scholarships. Every crucial decision is in your hands. Now, are you up to the challenge? Can you handle the pressure? What I love most about the game is the ability to call offensive plays during the games. That allows you to shape your season and your program's future. Ultimate College Football HC is free. It's ad-free and it's playable offline. So that's perfect for gaming on the go. And as viewers of Locked On Nittany Lions, you can use my promo code LOCKEDONCFB in the game store for a free boost to help you get started. And all you have to do to download the game, go to ultimate-cfb.com, or you can find it in the app stores. Again, that is Ultimate College Football HC. Begin your coaching legacy today. Now let's talk about the pass rush. 2 sacks against West Virginia, 0 sacks against Bowling Green, a MAC conference team once again, even though I think they will contend for a title and deserve a lot more respect than maybe we had all given them leading up to that week for the game. But the pass rush is not bad. That's an easy one. Abdul Carter, Deni Dennis Sutton, Zane Durant, Devon J. Thomas. Okay, but the results speak for themselves, Zach. How can you say they're not bad when they only have 2 sacks through 2 games? Not a Manny Diaz defense. Manny Diaz's defense turned up the pressure. Well, that's a difference in system. It is also circumstantial to an extent. How about the West Virginia game? West Virginia is a run-first team, has a mobile quarterback, and a pretty good offensive line, probably one of the best. I would say it's floor top 20 in the nation. I've said top 15. Maybe you can make an argument for top 10. West Virginia's offensive line the past 2 years has been really good. Manny Diaz's defense didn't get a lot of pressure the season before. So 2024, the results are kind of similar here. But against Bowling Green, that's a Group 5 team that there really is no excuse. Well, I want to go back to the circumstantial part of it. It is tough to get after the quarterback when Bowling Green sets an initiative to get the football out of Connor Bazelak, the quarterback's hands, in 0.2 seconds. Now, that's an exaggeration, of course, but it really felt like that. Connor Bazelak was getting rid of the football. It's not like he had all day to sit back in the pocket, read a book, because Bowling Green knew they were able to create different routes that allowed, based on what they saw in Penn State's game against West Virginia. They watched the film, they saw it, because again, every coverage, every defense, what I tried to point out in segment 1, is beatable if you do it right. If you put the right game plan together, you put the right blueprint, and then you execute, you can take advantage of any defense. So if Penn State's going to run cover 3 or man and a 4-2-5 defense, and you have the film to back up the game plan that you're anticipating, you're going to get that. But when Penn State made the necessary adjustments, that's when Bowling Green didn't have any answers. But the one thing that was constant, one thing that was consistent, is Bowling Green made sure that they got the football out of Connor Bazelak's hands almost immediately. I think the average throw was about 2.5 seconds. That's pretty quick. That's high praise. If you think that Abdul Carter can get to the quarterback in 2 seconds, and he nearly did a couple of times, fighting through the double teams, fighting through, right, seeing all that attention. Same thing with Dani Dennis Sutton and the interior of the defensive line. To get there in 2 seconds is difficult. And then I want to bring it back to the discussion about the system. Manny Diaz, his defense is built around pressure, 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 and more pressure, not only from the defensive line. Penn State is rushing typically 4 or 5 players. They blitz a little bit, but not heavily. And kind of similar to what Manny Diaz did when he started in 2022. Penn State fans were eager, I think to an extent, and there's that difference between eager and anxious. So eager, but also anxious. When is that true Manny Diaz defense going to be blitz happy and aggressive as all heck? I think Tom Allen is saving his best formations, his best plans for later. You don't need to turn up the dial and blitz 6, 7 players against Bowling Green. You can have success. You didn't have a lot of sacks, you didn't have a lot of pressure, but Penn State still had enough success to win on that given day. You're going to have to get pressure against Miller Moss, Will Howard, and that means manufacturing it with 5, 6 different players, but they're not blitzing heavily to this point in time. They are winning their matchups, and that's what is important. That's where the analytics come in. Pro Football Focus doesn't tell the entire story, but it tells another part of the story that a box score isn't going to show you. So you look at the defensive line, you look at 2 sacks against West Virginia, 0 sacks against Bowling Green, and you're scratching your head and you're concerned in what's going on. The defensive line, how did it get worse? Well, it didn't get worse. Those Penn State defensive linemen are winning their matchups, meaning that when they go to attack the passer on a pass rushing situation, they are beating that respective offensive lineman. So an Abdul Carter versus a tackle, or a Zane Durant and Devon J. Thomas, who have actually been really good in pass rush situations. The interior of the defensive line has stepped up a lot. If you want to criticize Dani Dennis Sutton and Abdul Carter for not performing to their expectations, that's understandable, and the analytics actually do back that up. But Devon J. Thomas, Zane Durant, Smith Vilbert at defensive end, Alonzo Ford has played very well to an extent himself at DT. Those guys are winning on their initial. They're getting past the guard or the center, but by the time the quarterback gets the football, you don't get the pressure because the football's gone. It's already out of the hands of the quarterbacks. So it is circumstantial. When they go up against the center, the guard, respectively on the interior of the defensive line, they are winning the battle, and then they start to get through. The difference is 0.5 or 1 second. I feel like Penn State could have had pressure, could have had quarterback hits, more sacks, had that extra second been there and Bazelak held on to the football. But his initiative, their game plan was to get rid of the football as soon as possible so that Penn State could not apply pressure. For the defensive line as a whole, defensive tackles really stepped up. I've mentioned Zane Durant and how he has been Pro Football Focus's best defender through 2 weeks for Penn State, but the defensive tackles, consistent to last season, have been great against the run. This was a defense that collectively only allowed 2.2 yards per carry, and you're still seeing it. So not only is the defensive interior getting pressure on pass rushing situations, they're still applying that same presence when it comes to the run as well. Now, Abdul Carter and Dani Dennis Sutton have not lived up to preseason expectations. That change from linebacker to defensive end has not been the easiest for Abdul Carter. Now, granted, he is receiving a lot of double teams, but if you look at Pro Football Focus, I don't want to just sugarcoat it. I don't want to hide the results. Abdul Carter is currently listed as the lowest rated player by PFF. Dani Dennis Sutton, middle of the pack. Again, why is that? Abdul Carter is being taken away from plays, but when he is able to get a one-on-one matchup, we saw him cause a fumble against West Virginia. He's just getting so much attention from opposing offenses because you have to. You have to account for a number 11, and I think that's an extension of why Penn State's defense is seeing success in other places. Tony Rojas, right? The defensive tackles, Zane Durant and Devon J. Thomas. The secondary, and A.J. Harris or Zach Wheatley, K.J. Winston, hopefully he, returns in due time, right? Hopefully it's not presumably an injury, but we don't know for sure just yet. But those players can all make plays because the offense is like, we got to account for number 11. Where is he going? Where is he going to be? But the results are also going to show, Carter is taken out of the play. He's not producing on this play, but that's because the offense is devoting a lot of resources to making sure that he does not make a play. So the defensive line is not overly a concern at this point. They're actually doing the things that they did well a season ago and better in terms of run defense. I think the pass rush in due time, Abdul Carter still needs time to adjust. He's moving from linebacker to defensive end, so that results at defensive end aren't going to happen right away. So now the argument's being made that maybe he should switch back to linebacker. Maybe Penn State should consider moving him away from the line of scrimmage. How about we answer that on the other side of this break? Today's episode is also brought to you by 5 Hour Energy. 5 Hour Energy fixes tired fast. Whether you have a long list to do for work or a list of DIY projects to tackle at home, take a 5 Hour Energy shot so you can check everything off your list. And if you're like me, you always have a large list of projects for the home. So when you get your supplies for the project, don't forget the most essential supply, which is a 5 Hour Energy shot. With zero sugar, a convenient portable size, it's the perfect pick-me-up for getting stuff done. The 5 Hour Energy website has flavors galore. You can choose from watermelon, tropical burst, grape, berry, and more. There is truly a flavor for everyone, and you can try them all on the website. You even have the option to build a 12 or 24 pack. You choose the flavors, and it's delivered right to your door. If you go to 5hourenergy.com, that is the number 5hourenergy.com, and get a 5 Hour Energy product today, you can use my promo code LOCKEDONCFB to receive 20% off your order. This offer is only valid till September 30th on one order and can't be used with other promotions. The code is also not good on subscription orders, but again, that is code LOCKEDONCFB for 20% off your order. So go to 5hourenergy.com today. Now, depending on who you ask, some people might say that the position change of Abdul Carter from linebacker to defensive end was a bad idea, that it's not working out, and that Penn State should scrap it ASAP. And I'm here to say that I think he should stay at defensive end. Because of Penn State's defensive system, the 4-2-5, where you play 2 linebackers and 5 defensive backs, this allows you to get Abdul Carter just in a play-making situation. You just get him closer to the line of scrimmage. You get him closer to the football and the point of the attack. I completely understand the argument that linebacker isn't perfect right now. Kobe King, Dom DeLuca, I think are underperforming right now. The analytics back that up, but Tony Rojas is overperforming. You've had the emergence of Tony Rojas allows you to keep Abdul Carter at defensive end. But I've said it already and I'll say it again. And James Franklin has essentially agreed with me when we talked about it at a post-practice press conference that there is limited depth at linebacker. If the linebacker depth, knock on wood, I don't like speaking this into existence, but it could be a reality if it presents itself where injuries pile up. There's not a lot of playmakers at the linebacker position, and you going into an important game in the Big Ten Conference slate, you might need to move Abdul Carter back there. And I think, Smith Vilbert has shown a lot. Amin Vanover, I think, needs to perform a little better in his own right. Dennis Sutton has been okay. But if he's going to be that first or early day 2 and a future NFL draft pick, then we're going to need to see more from Dennis Sutton to this point. But I think the 3 of them are capable of getting things done. Now, what could help sway this decision one way or another is how soon is Keon Wiley going to come back? Remember Keon Wiley? Keon Wiley had a good performance at the tail end of the Rose Bowl. Was that backup to Abdul Carter when he was that weak side linebacker? And I think Keon Wiley, if and when he's fully healthy, has a lot of potential to work with. So if Wiley comes back sooner rather than later, you keep Abdul Carter for sure at that defensive end position. Maybe Dakari Nelson continues to develop the way that he should as well, moving from safety to linebacker. So no, it's not a perfect situation, and it's not an ideal situation either, given the linebacker depth. But I truly believe that Penn State should keep Abdul Carter at defensive end. This move is still going to take time. I think by the middle part of the season, that is when Abdul Carter is really going to have it figured out and be able to take on those double teams more effectively. But it's not because he's performing bad all around. It is because he is receiving a lot of due and just attention because of his playmaking ability. Those plays being made aren't going to show up right away. They will show up down later on in the season, and it's about being adjusted to Tom Allen's system and being adjusted to the actual position of defensive end. Pro Football Focus has rated Abdul Carter as the worst player overall on Penn State's defense through 2 games, but there's other evidence to why that is in this case. Carter moving back to linebacker, that the only way that's going to happen is if Penn State doesn't have the linebacker depth that it needs in an important competition. And then for 1 week or for 2 weeks, they can play Smith Vilbert, Amin Vanover a little more, as opposed to rotating the defensive ends frequently as they do behind Abdul Carter and deny Dennis Sutton. So the long-term plan still needs to be Abdul Carter stays at defensive end. Linebacker needs to stay the way it is, but that's always going to be a game plan week by week by week that is going to adjust. KJ Winston being a safety, acts as a second linebacker, actually is one of the best graded players when it comes to defending the run. He is a pseudo linebacker to an extent. So positions don't matter. Honestly, it's about the playmaking ability and where they are set up to make plays and maximize that playmaking ability given what you have on the depth chart. KJ Winston is a safety, but he plays pretty close to the box, so couldn't he be considered an extra hybrid linebacker? Jalen Reed, to an extent, is on the way that he's playing, flying around to the football everywhere. Yes, he's listed as a safety, but he's playing linebacker duties with the way that he has stepped up and defended the run this season. You have all those guys available. The emergence of Tony Rojas. Tyler Elston has actually performed pretty well in a backup role. I'd like to see more from Dom DeLuca. I think Kobe King can be better. But there's really, you don't need, Penn State's defense doesn't need, they don't have to move Abdul Carter back to linebacker for any reason at this point in time. That could change at any moment, but don't think right now that Penn State is in a position where they would want to move Abdul Carter. They want him at defensive end. They think he's better suited at defensive end. It is going to take time. It's not going to happen tomorrow or maybe even next week, but that true overall game-wrecking ability is going to show up week 7, week 8, week 9. It's just a matter of getting used to the position and ultimately Tom Allen's defense. Just give it time. Give it time. We're 2 weeks in with an excellent performance against West Virginia, a Bowling Green performance that wasn't promising, wasn't ideal, but only in the first half. Can you look at the second half and things turned around pretty quickly and they will continue to get better. That's going to do it for this edition of Locked On Nittany Lions. I appreciate each and every one of you for checking out this episode. Please leave a like on the episode, share it with friends and family. Most importantly, be a part of the conversation. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments section about Tom Allen, about the pass rush, about Abdul Carter, if you think he's a defensive end or a linebacker. And if you're not already, become an everydayer. Subscribe to Locked On Nittany Lions on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts for the latest conversations around your favorite Penn State sports teams. And as always, thanks so much for making Locked On Nittany Lions your first listen and watch every single day. For your second listen and watch, you got to check out Locked On College Football with host Spencer McLaughlin. Spencer takes you through everything when it comes to the college football landscape, talking about the previous weekend, recapping games, giving you the analysis, and then previewing the upcoming slate of games. And there isn't one bit of news, the X's or the O's, that Spencer won't go through to get you the information about the college football landscape. So that's why it's called Locked On College Football. It's available on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team each and every day.